Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Uneducated Philosopher. Um, Today I'd like to address the subject of racism. Um, Not so much black and white or Chinese, First Nations, or not so much of what the race is, but racism in general. Um, this is a subject that is, I would say, just as old as civilization itself, possibly even older. Um, Now, we could always blame ignorance and lack of knowledge up until now. Um, because racism isn't so much, it's not something that you're born with, it's a learned behavior. So, I mean, if you come from a family that is 6 or 7 generations Ku Klux Klan, let's say, and you were adopted like pretty much right from birth into a Chinese family or a black family, Jewish family, what have you, right? You would not be racist. I mean, if you were raised by a family, even a white family, that had absolutely no bias or form of bigotry whatsoever, and just taught basic, straightforward values of treating everybody fair and the same. No matter what kind of family that you came from, how many generations of Ku Klux Klan or whatever, you were raised your whole life by a straightforward family that taught you straight values, you would not have any racist intentions whatsoever. It's a learned behavior. Now, if you were a certain ethnicity and you were raised by the same ethnicity to hate that ethnicity, as messed up as that sounds, you would be racist towards your own ethnicity. It would make no sense whatsoever, but this is the learned behavior that you've acquired all your life. Now, some people come from certain values, and then at a certain point in their life, something happens to them and makes them change that value. And someone comes along and says, well, this happens because these people are this and these people are that, and the bad experience in turn makes this person or whatever become racist. This is all due to ignorance. You know, it's really easy. I mean, it's really easy to be racist. It is. Like, if I'm driving down the street and someone cuts me off and I get really pissed off at them and I look over at them, the first thing that I notice is whether they're male or female and a certain race. So when you get angry and you look over, you look over the person and you go, oh, you, and then whatever slander you want to give, right? And I mean, it's a very easy thing to do, and I'm sure everybody has done it at least once in their life, where They look over and anger gets the best of them, and that's the first thing you see is what they are. But when you get to know certain facts and acquire a certain amount of knowledge, you really come to understand that it's all bullshit. Like, science over the last certain amount of years has been able to prove through evolution that we all come from the same place. Now, I'll give you a good example. A little while ago, I was working at a place, and I used to work side by side with an older gentleman, and he's Canadian, like his family 6 or 7 generations, and one day a subject came up, and he's not a racist gentleman at all. And I can't remember exactly what was said, but it was basically like, I'm white. And I looked over at him and I said, well, what does that mean? You're white. Like, what does that mean exactly? And he said, well, I'm white. I'm a white man. And I'm like, okay, well, what is that? He said, well, I'm Canadian. And I said, well, what do you mean you're Canadian? And he's like, well, I'm Canadian. And I'm like, well, you do realize that we're still a fairly young country. We're still basically one of the youngest countries in the world. I mean, most of our population originates from somewhere else. So I'm like, well, what do you mean you're Canadian? Like, obviously originally your family came from somewhere. And he's like, oh, no, I'm a Canadian. I'm Canadian. My family comes from Canada. They've always been from Canada. And I'm like, yeah, but Canada was never always Canada. At one time we were a British colony and French colony, and our inhabitants came from other places. Now there was First Nations that were here, of course. And so I said to him, like, well, what are you First Nations? Is that what you're telling me? No, I'm not First. I'm a white man, he says. I said, well, what the fuck does that mean? You're a white man. And he said, I'm Canadian. I said, okay, listen. I'm like, listen to me. I said, everybody originally comes from somewhere when you go far back. And even if you go far enough back, even First Nations did not originate from this land. Human beings all originate from somewhere. And like, no, that's not true, this guy was saying. And I had to go home. I had to print out all the paperwork and the proof, and the next day I had to go back. This is how. Now, he wasn't a racist man, but he was ignorant to what he is and what human beings are and where we come from. So when I went back and I showed him, like, listen, we all originate from an eastern part of Africa. At a certain timeline, we migrated and we started making our way east. Now, some kind of went towards the Europe area, and some went more over towards Australia area. Some kind of went up towards the Russian area and eventually made their way to the Bering Strait and crossed over on that little small crossing that took them over to Inuit area, North America, and migrated down. Now, this all happened over hundreds of thousands of years. Migration, like all animals, they migrated over time when we were hunters and gatherers. Now, this person, because their whole life they were born and raised to be told that they are Canadian, they are a white man, they could not, even though he's not a racist person, he just could not accept the fact that we all come from the same place. We all originate from the same area. Really, when it all comes down to it, if you follow every single one of our lineage all the way back to the very beginning, we're all African. We all come from a central east part of Africa. And it's very hard for people to accept, especially like these, neo-Nazi racist people, because they're like, oh, you're saying I'm African, or you saying I'm black, and I'm saying, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we all originate from a certain primate, and as the primates started to separate from each other and go their different ways, and all experience different ecological problems, like challenges and different environments, they all adapted and changed in certain ways: physical, mental, cultural, belief systems, like everything, changed towards the groups as they started to separate from each other and go to different places. And this is why you have different religions. This is why you have different physical features. But when you draw, there was an interesting test that was done in New York City. I believe it was Columbia University. They went to a New York subway and they recruited like 1,000 different people from all different ethnicities and drew DNA from them. And when they did tests on their DNA, they found that every single person's DNA, no matter what their gender and ethnicity, it was 99.7% identical. There was a 0.03% that is different from each other, that makes this big change on the color of our skin, the features, our ethnicity. Small little fragment is what changes our physical features, and that is the start to putting us in groups and changing who we are, and eventually making it like, I'm this, you're that. Now, racism is a huge subject. It derives from thousands and thousands of years of crap. You can go back to, like, as far as we know, at a time, the Israelites migrated to Egypt, and the Egyptian pharaohs used them as slaves. That's racism. That's, this is a different group of people, and we take them, they're our slaves. And I don't know if that's the beginning of racism, but that's a good example of ancient racism. I'm sure it goes a lot further than that. But bottom line is that they did not have the knowledge to know that, even though that we look different and that there might be different belief systems, that at one point in our evolution we all originated from the same clan. We all migrated from the same area, and there was a time where we all basically looked mostly the same. We were a primate that looked 99.9% the same, acted the same, believed in the same stuff. I mean, we all share a certain amount of organs. We all have the same brain makeup. I mean, we're all anatomically the same in a lot of ways. And our DNAs even match up all the way up until a .03. There's that little difference that makes us up. Now, due to people's experiences and upbringing and how they grew up and what it might have happened in their life and community that they're in, and they got their reasons for not liking Somalians, they got their reasons for not liking white people, they got their reasons for not liking, there are all kinds of bullshit out there, for a reason why this person doesn't like that person, this person doesn't like that person. And that's something that each individual really has to work out, because when it comes down to it, every single race has good people and bad people. Every single race has people that you'll like and people that you'll dislike, people that you'll agree with, people that you'll disagree with. It doesn't matter. There are people that we can work with and people that we can't work with, no matter where they're from, what religion they are, what their background is, their belief, anything like that. But when it comes to people that say, I'm this and you're that, and I'm this race and I'm pure and you're that and you're mixed and you're this and you're that, that is just straight ignorance. And we really need to get past that, because in this day and age, with our science and our knowledge, we all originate from the same place. We're all made up of the same things. And it's really time, with the knowledge that we have and the technology that we have, and the fact that I can speak to somebody in China right now over Skype, how everything is just brought together. It's time for us to really just move past all that shit. I mean, I know a lot of people right now are looking at this video and they're probably feeling some kind of, I don't know if they're feeling hate, but, they're probably looking and they're saying, yeah, okay, whatever, Rob, like, enough with the piety, like, that's just straight bullshit, like, you've never, made a racist remark in your life. And I'll be the first to say, there was a time in my life, even though I had friends in different ethnicities, I was very racist. I never realized it at the time, but when I look at it now, I had a very ignorant way of looking at things. Now, I have different ethnicities in my family. I have cousins that have married black people, and, I had, I grew up with different ethnicities, and it's not that I was like a full-blown like Nazi racist, but I had a very crude way of looking at the segregation of each group. And when I look at it now, I did have a very racist mentality without even knowing it, but there was a time in my life where I did research and I realized it's time to grow the fuck up. We are at an age now where racism is just it's getting dull. It's getting stupid. I mean, look at the Sterling thing. You own a. I hate to bring people up. I never usually do that. I try to stay away from that politics. But here you have an old ass man that's stuck in like these old times. Like black people smell weird and just stupid shit. Nobody smells weird if they shower every day and keep themselves clean. We all smell the same if we keep ourselves clean. There was a time where these high scientists, they called themselves technocracy. And I mean, this was a group of really dominant scientists in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in the United States. And if you saw the group of scientists that were, this was the most predominant scientists of that time. People that are, science, like they're in history, they're some of the biggest scientists ever. And they believed that Chinese people mathematically wouldn't be able to keep up with technology. Well, now they're at the forefront of Chinese and Japanese and Oriental, like Asian, like they are at the forefront of technology. They're actually, when it comes to a lot of technologies, they're surpassed and are far ahead of us, the Western world. That's just a small example of ignorance, even coming from a high, rich, apparently intelligent part of society. You know, we have ignorance about us that we don't even know. And it's time for us to get the proper knowledge, see what's going on, and just move past that. You know, it's time to just move past that. Um, you know, there's a lot of people, they feel very uncomfortable when it comes to marriage and kids, and they say, Italian should stay with Italians, Portuguese should stay with Portuguese, white should stay with white, black should stay with black. You know what, we're coming to a point in society where the whole world isn't like this anymore. It's starting to come together and be like this. And there is no point in going backwards, keeping ourselves back into a time where we thought with nothing but ignorance. If you fall in love with somebody, if you feel like your life can be better with a certain partner, no matter what their background or ethnicity is, you go ahead and move forward with your life and you do that. This whole subject of racism, I really don't think it's going to go away. I remember seeing shows with the whole Donald Sterling thing, and there was people and they're like, oh, I'm so disgusted. It just makes me sick to think that there's actually still racism in this world. I'm not an idiot. I know that there's racism. I know that there's very, very smart people that actually are racist, that have that ignorance still, whether they were born with it or whether not born with it, but whether they were raised in a family that they were taught that and they just wouldn't let it go, or whether they just decided to adopt that mentality. That's completely up to them. I'm not going to be stupid and act like racism doesn't exist. I really don't think it's gonna go anywhere, as in like it will be extinct forever. But I think we're coming to an age where the whole world is just, it's inevitable. Everything is moving so fast, it's progressing, it's moving forward, and the whole world is becoming smaller and smaller, and we're just so interconnected that it is impossible to deny the fact that all race is going to intermingle. I mean, there might even be a time one day where it's like eventually most people just come together of like a mixture of color, and it makes a totally different skin tone, or the average person is going to be like the same skin tone. And if that's the way it is, I mean, you'll always have like pigments, skin pigments and stuff, but if that's the way it is, then that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We need to move past the racism bullshit. We need to move. Every once in a while you might get angry and you might look at someone that cuts you off on the road and you might go, oh, you bloody honky, or something. I understand that. That's ignorance on your part. You're angry. When you're angry, it's a scientific fact that your brain is not thinking rational, and you might say some stupid things. But on an overall whole, we need to really get past the whole racism thing. We need to just put it behind us and just say, you know what, it's just another ignorant thing that's part of our society, part of our progressing in life, and we just need to put that behind us. And hopefully eventually we'll put religion behind us too, but that's another subject altogether. That's another subject altogether of division and strife. But That's today's segment, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or anything that you want to say to that, you can contact me at Robbie at un-educatedphilosopher.com. And thanks a lot. Thanks for the support. Please share, and cheers.